For 6 years, I took care of my dying husband, and the morning he was finally gone, I found out I had nothing left. No money and nobody. My name's Linda. I was a teacher once up in Portland. But for the last 6 years of my life, I wasn't a teacher. I was a nurse, a cook, a pair of hands, an alarm clock that went off every 2 hours all night long. My husband David had dementia. I kept him home, I kept him comfortable, and I spent our savings doing it. I let my friendships quietly fall away because there was never any time. Then he passed, and I sat in a silent house with an empty bank account and a phone that did not ring. I'd given 6 years and everything I had, and there was nothing left over and no one left to notice. I could have stayed in that quiet house and just waited to get old, but I was 71, not dead, and I was so tired of being the one who gives and gives. So I took what little I had left and I moved to Cebu in the Philippines, somewhere warm, somewhere I could afford, somewhere I might finally be the one who gets taken care of. I want to tell you about the landing, and I'm not going to make it pretty because it wasn't. Cebu wasn't my first stop, though. The flights routed me through Manila, and that's where the Philippines and I got our rough introduction. I flew into Manila, and the first thing that hit me when the airport doors opened was the heat. Not warmth, heat. Thick and wet, and it was 1 a.m, and it was still like that. I'd booked a little serviced apartment in a district called BGC because the internet said it was modern and safe and had good hospitals, and after 6 years of medical fear, good hospitals was a phrase that could make me cry. The taxi took 2 hours in traffic that never stopped moving and never actually got anywhere, horns and motorbikes an inch off my window, and I sat in the back gripping my one suitcase thinking, Linda, what in the world have you done? That first night, I didn't sleep. The air conditioner rattled and dripped into a coffee can somebody'd left under it. I remember that, the little tin sound going all night. And the grief, which I'd somehow told myself I was leaving back in Oregon, well, it came right along with me. I lay on that strange bed in that strange country, and I missed David so hard I couldn't breathe. I missed my house. I missed knowing what tomorrow was supposed to look like. I had my phone in my hand with my thumb over the button to look up flights home. And I'll be honest with you, the only thing that stopped me was the plain fact that there was no home to fly back to. I'd sold it. So I stayed. Not out of courage, out of being too worn out to run. And the first weeks were hard. I need to be honest, because there are videos out there that make this look like paradise from the second you land, and that's a lie. And the lie hurts people. It was not paradise. The heat didn't let up. The brownouts, the power just quitting, sometimes an hour, sometimes most of an afternoon, left me sitting in the dark, sweating through my shirt, feeling every one of my 71 years. I got the stomach sick new arrivals get. I got lost constantly. And I'll tell you a stupid one. There was a plant. I'd bought this little green thing at a market, a pretty leafy thing, and set it on the windowsill because it made the place feel less like a box. And I killed it in about 10 days. Anyway, it doesn't mean anything. I just remember standing there looking at this dead brown thing, thinking I couldn't even keep that alive, and having a little cry about it, which was really a cry about a lot of other things. You know how that goes. But something started to shift, and it started, the way it always does, with a person. His name was Ramon. He drove a tricycle, a little motorbike with a sidecar bolted on the side. They call it a trike. They're everywhere. He was parked outside my building the morning I stood on the curb, clearly lost, holding a scrap of paper with the address of a pharmacy. He didn't speak much English, and I spoke no Tagalog, but he understood the paper, and he understood the look on my face, which was the look of a woman about to cry in public. And he waved me into that sidecar, took me to the pharmacy, waited, took me back. And when I fumbled with the strange money, he didn't just take it, he counted it back to me, 1 coin at a time, slow, so I'd know for next time. He could have cheated the confused old American woman easy. He didn't. Next week, he was there again, remembered where I lived, called me Man Linda with this little nod, and I felt a little bit better than I had in a long time. That's all. Just a little bit. Ramon's the one who said a thing to me early on that I keep chewing on. I was in that sidecar, gripping the bar the way I gripped everything back then, and I said to him, half to myself, that I didn't know a soul in this whole country, not one person. He caught it in the little mirror, and he thought about it a while, working the words, and he said, "Ma'am, here nobody is by yourself. Somebody always is looking." I thought he was just being kind, the way you humor a lost old woman. It took me the better part of a year to understand he wasn't being kind. He was telling me how the place actually works. I found out later Ramon had 4 kids and drove that trike from before sunup, and he'd lost his own wife 2 years back, and here he was telling me nobody's alone. He never once let on he knew what that felt like from the inside. I only heard it from Aling Nena later. There was Aling Nena, who ran the Sari Sari store on the corner, a tiny neighborhood shop half the size of my old bathroom that sold everything from single cigarettes to shampoo in little packets to warm bread in the morning. She used that word for me too, Aling, before I even knew what it meant. She started setting aside a particular sweet bread she noticed I liked, pandesal, warm, wrapped in paper, before I even got to the counter. Little things. I know they're little things, but when you've gone 6 years and not one person's noticed what kind of bread you like or set anything by for you, I don't know. It got to me more than it should have. I'd walk home with that warm bread and have to get a hold of myself. Her husband, by the way, was some kind of retired sailor, always sat out front in a plastic chair with a transistor radio to his ear, and I never once figured out what he was listening to. He'd just wave. Aling Nena was the first person who ever flat out told me to slow down. I'd gotten in the habit of tidying her little counter while I waited, squaring up the gum packets, wiping a ring off the glass. I couldn't help it, my hands just do it. And one morning she put her own hand flat on top of mine, right on the counter, and held it there and said, "Aling Linda, you are a guest. Sit." And she dragged over the plastic stool her husband used and made me sit on it and drink a warm Coke in a little plastic bag with a straw, which is how they serve it there, and she wouldn't let me get up to help with anything. I sat on that stool feeling useless and itchy and near tears because I did not know how to just sit and be waited on. I had genuinely forgotten how, if I ever knew. She stood there watching me not know how, and she wasn't unkind about it, but she wasn't going to let me up either. I stayed in Manila a few months, but it was too much city for me, so I went looking for somewhere quieter, and I landed in Cebu. Not the loud part downtown, but a slower street up away from all that, 2 turns back from a little market. I rented a small apartment with a balcony where I could sit in the evening, and I dragged 2 suitcases and myself up those stairs and started over. Again. Now, I promised you honesty, and part of honesty is money, because I know some of you clicked on this exact video for this exact part. And there's no shame in that. So let me give you the real numbers. My apartment in Cebu, a clean 1-bedroom with that balcony, runs me $280 a month. My food? And I eat well. Fresh fish and fruit I couldn't have touched in Oregon, and I still eat out a few times a week. Comes to about $250, give or take, some months more. Electricity, with the air conditioner I've finally made peace with, plus water and internet, is around $130. A woman named Josie comes twice a week to help me clean and do the laundry, and I pay her better than the going rate because I know exactly what it is to do that work for somebody, and that's another 80 or so. And here's the one, the doctor. A real, unhurried. When I had a bad chest infection last year, the whole thing, doctor, x-ray, medicine, came to under $60, all in. I sat in that clinic thinking about all the money that had just poured out of my life back home over those 6 years, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I did a little of both, right there in the waiting room. Let me put the little things in too, because it's the little things that add up to a life, and it's the little things nobody tells you. A whole fresh fish off the ice at my market, big enough to feed me 3 days, is about $2. The fish lady picks it out for me. I don't even choose anymore. I just trust her. A basket of mangoes so sweet they don't seem legal, $1 and change. A jeepney ride across town, that's the old painted bus thing they pack full, is about 20 cents, though I mostly take a trike now because of my knees, and that's $1. A haircut and a proper wash from a girl who takes her time is under $4. I get a real massage an hour from a woman who comes to the apartment for about $8, and she scolds me the whole time about how tight my shoulders are, 6 years of tight, and I let her. A big jug of drinking water delivered up my stairs is under $2. What they add up to is, I stopped doing math in the grocery aisle. For 6 years, I did math over every single thing, every copay, every prescription, watching it all drain. And here one day, I noticed I'd just stopped. I bought the mangoes without thinking about it. You have no idea what that does for a person's shoulders until it happens. All in, everything counted, I get by fine here on somewhere around $1,150 a month. And that leaves me, for the first time since David got sick, a little room, a little margin. I'm not rich, I'll never be rich, but I can breathe now. After 6 years of holding my breath, that's plenty. But there's something I've got to tell you, and it's more important than any of those numbers, so please don't let the dollars be the thing you walk away with. Getting by cheap was never really what this turned out to be about. The money's what got me in the door. It's the reason I could afford to be here at all. But it's not the reason I stayed, and it's not the thing that saved me. The thing that saved me, I wasn't even looking for. I'd stopped thinking it was mine to have. Her name is Grace. She's young, 26, 27, and she works at a call center, one of those overnight jobs where she talks to Americans in the middle of the night about their credit cards. We got to know each other slow, the way neighbors do. A nod on the stairs, a hello. She's got this way of tilting her head when you talk, like whatever you're saying is the most interesting thing she's heard all day. She started asking me real questions about David, about Portland, about being a teacher, and I found myself telling her things I hadn't said out loud to another living person, because there hadn't been another living person to say them to. See, I'd spent 6 years being the one who takes care, and I brought that with me, I suppose. Grace put it plainer than I ever could. Ma'am Linda, 6 years you take care is like a job. You don't stop just because. So the first month or two on that street, I was underfoot. Somebody's kid scraped a knee out front, and I came flying down with a bandage and the antiseptic like it was a trauma ward. Josie mentioned her back hurt one time, and the next thing she's sitting in my kitchen while I fuss over her with a heating pad and make her a cup of tea she never asked for and didn't want, I think. There was a boy down the block, boyette, maybe 8, and I ran out and grabbed his arm and started cleaning a scrape it was nothing, barely a scratch. And I'm down there on the pavement with the cotton and the little bottle going at it, and the boy's pulling his arm back and looking up the street for his mother. And I wouldn't let go. I kept telling him, hold still, in English, which he didn't even understand. His mother came out. Some people started laughing, and I didn't know why. And I thought at first something was wrong, and then it landed that it was me, this old American woman on her knees over a scratch that didn't need any of it. I got up too fast and my knee cracked, and that got another laugh. My face was burning. I didn't have a thing to say. I just stood there in the street holding the bottle, not sure whether to apologize or go inside. Grace was on the stairs. She put her hands on my shoulders and turned me toward my own door, gentle, the way you'd turn a child. Lola. That was the word they'd started using for me. I went in and shut the door, and I was embarrassed the rest of the day. It was weeks later Grace said something about it. She said in her town, if people don't laugh at you, it means you're still company, still a guest. When they laugh, she said, that's when they've stopped being careful with you. I didn't get it right away. Took me a long time to. And it kept happening, the fussing, because you don't unlearn 6 years in a week. When Grace came home gray and hollow off a run of night shifts, I'd have soup on before she'd got her shoes off, and I'd hover, watching her eat it, the way I used to watch David. One evening, she set the spoon down and she looked at me. Not annoyed, worse than annoyed. She looked sad for me, and she said, Ma'am Linda, who takes care of you when you are doing this? And I opened my mouth to answer, and there wasn't one. 6 years, and there wasn't one. She said, you are hungry too. I have thought about that sentence more than any doctor's ever said to me. You just forgot which one is the hungry feeling. I had. I'd spent so long being the answer to somebody else's need that I couldn't feel my own anymore. Couldn't tell it apart from the wanting to be useful. Grace, 26 years old, saw that in me across a bowl of soup and named it and made me sit down and eat. And then one morning, I was the one who was sick. Just a bad cold, nothing serious, but the kind of thing that when you're alone and 71 lands heavier than it should. I hadn't told anybody. I didn't have anybody to tell. Or I thought I didn't. Old habits. I was lying in bed feeling sorry for myself, and there was a soft knock at the door, and it was Grace, still in her work clothes, home from an overnight shift, dead tired, holding a bowl. Tinola, she said, a warm chicken soup with ginger and green papaya, the thing her mother made her when she was sick. She'd stopped on her way home, after working all night, to make an old woman she barely knew a bowl of soup. I need you to understand what happened to me in that doorway, because I'm not sure I understand it all the way myself. I stood there holding this warm bowl, and I just started crying, and I could not stop. And poor Grace, she thought she'd done something wrong, but it wasn't wrong. It was that for 6 years I'd been the one carrying the soup to somebody, the one setting the alarm. And in all that time, nobody had once carried anything to me. Not once, not one person. And here's this tired girl off a night shift, holding a bowl out at my door. That was all. I know how small it sounds. It didn't feel small. I want to tell you about the hard stretch, too, because it came right in the middle of all this gentleness, and I wasn't expecting it. And if I leave it out, I'm lying by leaving it out. A few months in, once the newness wore off, and I finally slept a full night through, and let me tell you, the first night I slept 8 hours straight, I woke up frightened, actually frightened, because my body had forgotten what that was and thought something was wrong. Once the rest set in, the grief came up through the floor. That's the only way I can put it. When you're running on no sleep and pure duty, you don't have room to feel the whole size of a thing. You just do the next task. But down there in Cebu, safe, fed, looked after, my body finally set the weight down. And the second it did, all 6 years of it came for me at once. I'd lie out on that balcony at 3 a.m, wide awake, and the guilt would come. Not the grief. I'd think, did I turn David too rough that one night? Did I miss something a real nurse would have caught? Was I short with him near the end when he didn't know me anymore? I know I was. I was so tired. And here I am now, warm, taken care of, sleeping through the night, and he's gone. What right have I got to be looked after when I couldn't keep him? That's a poison, that thought, and it found me right when I'd let my guard down enough to rest. Some of those nights were as low as any in that quiet house back home. Lower, maybe, because I'd let myself hope. It was Aling Nena's daughter of all people visiting from her town who I ended up telling this to. I don't even know why. We'd only just met, but sometimes it's easier with a stranger. And she didn't try to talk me out of it. She just said her grandmother had a saying, that a person who has carried water a long way is allowed to set the bucket down without saying sorry to the water. And I sat with that. A long way, without saying sorry. I'd been apologizing to David in my head for resting, as if my being all right was a betrayal of him. And it took a young woman from a town I'll never see to tell me that setting the bucket down isn't the same as throwing it out. I didn't get over it in a night. I still visit it, that guilt, some evenings. But I stopped thinking I had to earn the right to be tired. And it didn't stop there. That's the part I keep trying to explain. Grace started leaving breakfast at my door some mornings. Just pandesal and coffee, a little sweet, the way she'd noticed I take it. When she caught me hauling groceries up the stairs, she took them right out of my hands, no discussion. And when I protested, she just said, "Ma'am Linda, you rest. You've done enough resting for other people. Now you rest for you." A 26-year-old said that to me, and it wasn't only her, it was the whole street. Josie won't let me lug the water jug up the stairs. She just takes it. There's a trike driver down on the corner here, and he waits under the awning when it rains so I don't walk home in it. Like it's nothing. Like, why are you even saying thank you? I tried to thank Josie properly one time, and she got almost annoyed with me. She said something I've thought about a lot since. In her English, which isn't perfect, she said, "Ma'am, you carry. All your life you carry. Now is our turn. Is only fair. Is only fair." After a whole life where needing help felt like some kind of failing, it took a woman who cleans my place twice a week to say it was only fair. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect. That'd be the lie I promised not to tell. There are evenings out on that balcony, the sun going down over the water, and the missing him will just come up out of nowhere, and I'll have to sit there and hold onto the railing a minute till it passes. I miss my maple, of all the dumb things. There's things about America I ache for. The rain smell there. Being able to read a sign without squinting at it. Get a joke on the radio. Some days I just miss home, and there's nothing to do about it but wait for it to go by. This didn't turn me into a happy person. I don't want anybody thinking I flew across the world and it fixed me, because it didn't. That's not how it went. But here's what's true. 6 years, I set that alarm every 2 hours, in the dark, and nobody was catching me. And this girl next door, in a few months, without me asking for one thing, she just noticed me. That's all it was. She noticed me. Took a young woman on the other side of the world, who I'm not related to, who owes me nothing, to do what a whole life in my own country never got around to. Here, I'm not invisible. That's the plainest way I know to say it. In Oregon, that last year, I'd just gone quiet and disappeared, and a person can go a long way down that road before anybody thinks to look. Here in Cebu, I walk down to the market, and the woman at the Grace waves from her window, coming home worn out from the overnight. She'll still lift her hand. If I don't come out for a day, somebody knocks and asks, "Am I all right?" After 6 years of not one soul keeping track of whether I was okay, I can't really tell you what that does to a person. It's a lot, is all. It's more than I expected. So let me talk to you straight now, whoever you are, sitting there watching this. I think I know why you're here. Maybe you're the one doing the catching right now, setting the alarms, sorting the pills, watching the money drain and the friends fade, wondering in the dark who's ever going to take care of the one doing all the taking care. Or maybe it's already over for you, and you're in your own quiet house with your own quiet phone, 70 or 60 or 50-something, running the math over and over, hoping you're the one who's wrong. I want you to hear this from somebody who sat exactly where you're sitting. You're not foolish for wondering if there's a softer place to land. And you're not being disloyal to the life you had, or to the person you lost. I worried about that one. It took me a while to let go of it. And you're not. I was 71, with 2 suitcases, and not much left in me. And I found a whole street of people who wouldn't let me carry the heavy things alone. I'm not going to tell you to go sell your house tomorrow. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just an old teacher on a balcony telling you the truth of what happened to me. If you're at that same crossroads I stood at, if you've given everything and there's nothing left and nobody left, and you're wondering if that's really where the story has to end, then maybe just sit with mine a while. Stay, and I'll keep telling you how it goes, the hard parts and the gentle ones both.
Grace knocked this morning, by the way. Pandesal, still warm, in the paper. Didn't say a word, she never does. She just leaves it and goes off to sleep after her shift. I've got it here on the counter. I should eat it before it goes cold. Anyway, I don't know how to end this the right way. I never was good at endings. The market's open till noon, and I told the fish lady I'd come by, so I ought to get moving.